Hello and welcome back to Joyful Motherhood. I'm Laura from the blog myjoyfulmotherhood.com, and today I'm going to tell you my experience with thrush with my baby and how we treated it naturally. Hopefully these tips will help you if you're going through the same thing. My third baby is 1 year old, and recently we dealt with thrush. He had it in his mouth, and then he passed it to me through breastfeeding, and so I had it on my nipples. And it's a really uncomfortable condition to have, and it's not fun. So it can cause a lot of pain for moms that are breastfeeding, and then it can also cause pain in the baby. It's sores and a buildup of fungus in the mouth. After I tell you my little experience and my unfortunate experience at the hospital trying to diagnose it, then I will give you my tips and my all-time biggest tip that has worked the 2 times that I've dealt with thrush with my babies. Don't forget to head over to my blog, myjoyfulmotherhood.com. It's always in the description. There are more resources over there. It's laid out really nicely with all 4 of my tips. So a few weeks ago, I noticed my son was a little fussy, and when he cried, I saw that in the back of his throat, he had white dots. Now, I know thrush, I understand it, I'm a doula and I help mothers breastfeed, but this time, seeing thrush in his mouth like this was really different for me. Usually I see it in the cheeks, on the tongue, cracked lips, around the mouth, just white patches, white little sores, and it really surprised me that he had it all over his throat. So my first thought was not thrush. I thought it was tonsillitis or strep. So I was waiting for a fever to come up, and after a day or 2, I started to wonder, what is this? He has no fever, he's not actually sick, but he started to kind of gag on his food and refuse to eat. So after doing some research and asking some friends online, I decided that I wanted to get him tested for strep. I guess it's possible that a baby can have strep and not have a fever, and then it can be really dangerous. And strep is something I'd like to get antibiotics for if I couldn't treat it naturally and catch it early. So I decided to rush into urgent care and get a strep test. Unfortunately, when I got there, everything with COVID going on, they were just a little bit more concerned than they probably should have been, and they sent me over to the ER. They were worried about his breathing, and she wanted to have his throat suctioned out. On my way over there to the ER, I called my husband and I told him that I didn't feel right about going. I really like to do things naturally. Always first. I'm not against medicine or going to the hospital, but something about this situation just made me feel like I didn't need to go. But I didn't want fear to be the reason I held back, and I still didn't know what was going on with his throat, so I decided to take him in. After all of the tests and questions, we were seen, and luckily a doctor came in quickly, and she looked right in his throat and said, "Oh, that's thrush." I was surprised, and I just was like, really? Like, it's on his throat? Okay. And so then from there, I just was under the impression that I could leave, and okay, great, thanks for diagnosing it. But it wasn't the best experience, and I won't go into it too much, but they wanted to do a ton of tests, a ton of treatment, and I just refused it. I'll tell you one part that was really kind of empowering and good for me. A really nice nurse, after I had been talked down to for all my other parenting decisions, a really nice nurse came in to do the first treatment of nystatin. It's a antifungal medicine that they prescribe for thrush. She came in and had the medicine ready and needed to put it in his throat. I had already been told that it was going to be really difficult to get it in his throat. He'll gag, just force it down. It was going to be this big, long thing. And before she came in, my baby fell asleep in my arms. It was late at night, and I just did not want him to be woken up. So as the nurse is getting ready, getting the medicine out, I was really hesitant to really say that I didn't want it done. But at the last minute, because she was having a hard time opening the medicine and I got an extra minute to think, I just said, actually, I'll just refuse the treatment today. And she was surprised, but she was really nice and told me, "You're the mom, you do what you think is best." And so she said I could go, and I left without any treatment, and I'm sure that other doctor just thought I was insane. Like, why come to the hospital and then not take her advice? I get it, I see both sides, but let me tell you why I don't want to use nystatin. And I talk about it more and give facts on my blog, but it's actually not that effective. There's so many better treatments. I don't know why they still just prescribed that. But there are cases that are resistant to nystatin. You have a really high chance of it recurring again. And besides that, there's sugar in it. And first of all, I just don't like to give my baby a lot of added sugar anyway, but sugar feeds yeast. And yeast is the problem. It's a buildup of that fungus in the mouth, and you don't want to use sugar. So that is one of my first tips, is no sugar. So if you want to treat this naturally, then cut out sugar and eat a whole unprocessed food diet. I recommend that all the time, but especially for your baby to get over it quickly, they need to have a ton of nutrients to build their immune system, and no sugar so it doesn't make the problem worse or more prolonged. Thrush is a sign of a weakened immune system, and I think that's what happened with us. For some reason, our immune system was just weak for a little while because we got thrush, mastitis, another little pukey sickness, all like in the same week. And so I feel like we need to build up our immune system. So here's some of my tips for building your immune system. Vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Those are my basic go-to supports the immune system. These zinc tablets are awesome. My son can just suck on these. I just give him half of one. And then this is something else I use. It's silver. And you can just spray this in your mouth. It's really good for your immune system and treating lots of other things. And then of course the basics of drinking enough water, getting exercise and fresh air, and sunshine. Now my next best tip is a probiotic supplement. So thrush can be that bacteria is out of balance in your body. Everybody has good bacteria and bad bacteria in your gut. You want to balance your bacteria. That's the basics. And so I use Restore. This is the only probiotic my son and I can take that doesn't make us sick. It used to be called Magic Dirt Water, I think. So it's just water and probiotics. Anyway, this is really helpful, and I think this made a big difference. I just put a little drop every few hours in my son's mouth for a couple of days. This is my absolute biggest tip. This is like the go-to. Maybe even if I just used this, it would have cleared it up on its own. Because when my daughter had this several years ago, this is all I used to get rid of hers. My son had a much more severe case, and so I just went crazy with all of these things I knew how to do, and it got rid of it really quickly. So here is my biggest tip. It's called grapefruit seed extract. This is antimicrobial and antifungal. So to use this, I add 10 drops into 1 ounce of water, mix it up, and I was also putting the probiotic in it sometimes. Then I put a cotton swab in it and just rub it on the baby's mouth. For my baby's case, it was mostly in his throat for the first several days, and so I actually just used a little syringe that you use for baby medicine, and I would just suck a little up in it and shoot it back to the back of his throat, and then feed him. And it doesn't taste good, and you always want to make sure you dilute it because I think it can burn. So that's what you do for baby. And then if you have it on your nipples, which it's really likely it will pass back and forth, then this is how you handle it for your nipples. So you use the same thing here. So for mom, you'll notice that you have kind of a rash, itchiness, and pain while breastfeeding, and that would be a sign of thrush. More specifically, the pain doesn't subside after the baby's latched on for a while. It's consistent, prolonged pain during the feeding. So you can use the same ratio, 10 drops in 1 ounce of water, and rub that on the nipples and let air dry every few hours or when you feed baby. You also want to keep your clothing clean and dry, and you want to wash your clothing on hot if you can, especially your bras. So those are my best tips for dealing with thrush. Again, go check out my blog, and there's a few more resources there. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, you can always leave me a comment or send me an email. Please follow me on Instagram at Joyful Motherhood Official. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy videos about parenting, motherhood, natural living, all that fun stuff. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.